Welcome back. This is where we left off from the previous video, and I'm fixing some of the things on the shadow layers and the highlight layers. I'm basically carving away at the masses of color that I have, or adding to those to create detail on the surfaces which are mostly flat. By doing that, you can basically just add volume to your shapes. It sounds a little simplistic put like that, but when you add a shadow, you're not only just adding a massive color, you're suggesting a certain volume, and that kind of creates breaks in the surface. Visually, it turns into more detail, basically. It adds just more noise to a certain surface. It makes it more interesting to look at, or at least it just puts it in place with everything else. In the case of the rock face here on the walls and towers, it helps not only give detail to the surface, but it also helps fit that surface into the isometric perspective, as all the lines are parallel to the original grid. And that way I'm sort of keeping things within volume, within shape, and within perspective and order. So I'm adding some bounce light on the towers just so that they don't clash with the shadows on the surfaces next to them. So for example, on the left wall and on the far wall where the little battlements are. And by doing that, I'm basically suggesting as well that there's more light sources than just the sunlight, that there's a light source in the left, which is basically going to be the sun. But what that does, it helps me justify the ambient occlusion. So now I have a color that is darker than anything else, despite not being phased into the shadow color. It means that just because it's the shadow side, it's not getting direct light, it doesn't have to be 100% black. Okay, that's why my ambient occlusion is there, to create that sort of range and set the range of colors to this is true dark and this is just dark-ish. Also here, by adding the details and just carving in a little bit of the tower, I'm suggesting that the tower is a little wider at the top, and I kind of like that. My towers are very much exactly the same as they were in the sketch, which were approximate cylinders, and that's not interesting. Not only is that not interesting, it's not realistic. Now you'll see me sometimes pick different colors from or near colors to the colors that I used before, and I'm doing that for creating subtleties on the line weight. I mean, you can't have a pixel smaller than 1 pixel, but you can have a lighter color, or you can have a more transparent color, and that gives the line work a bit more dynamic. So that's interesting, helpful, and it allows for just more detail as well, as you don't have to choose whether or not you put a thick line on something. Instead, you can have a line that is the same thickness, but it looks different. It's not something you can do in, for example, 1-bit pixel art, because you're either left with black or white, so all those decisions are really strong. But in the case of multiple colors, as I have here, which is absolutely no palette limit, I can go in and add subtleties in the lines just to help this. So there's a little bit of highlights on those stones on the ground there, but those end up looking too strong. I'm going to create a simplistic brush here, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get the shapes right at the start when I start doing it. And then I think that what I end up feeling is that it's just like a matter of style. I know that these look slightly cartoony and thick, but they kind of fit within the isometric style, and I'm really not bothered, so to speak, because I don't have to justify, let me try and explain this. I don't have to justify why my grass looks like this. It just does, you know what I mean? It's something more like artistic liberty rather than trying to mimic reality. Of course, the image itself doesn't mimic reality right away because we don't see things in orthographic view, so I kind of have that playing forwards for me. I also take the same color from the grass, and I do this, was this like an ivy plant. For the darker version on the left, I remove the highlights, as simple as that. I just remove the highlights, so now all I have is dark and mid-tones. I'm also adding shadows on the wall because it really helps show that these things are leaves poking out of the wall. And overall, I think they really add to the scene. I was really happy that they work really well without me needing to go in and adding a lot of detail. I was doing some shifting and cloning there because I realized that I had copied stuff with the lasso tool that was still with the anti-alias option active. So I'm basically bringing all the pixels up to 100% opaque so that I'm not ruining. You'll see me do this a lot as well, just getting some really ridiculous color to find the grids, and then I'll just recolor them with the colors from the scene. But at least I know I got the perspective right. So that's something that it's easier to do this way rather than having to go to complex links and just trying to find things correctly. One of the fun parts of the project was carving detail on the edges of the walls, but as well getting rid of the near side outlines. So I only had outlines, not inlines, so to speak, because I converted all of those inlines into roughed edges that I could then shade in a brighter tone. And that was really helpful to sort of sell this idea of stones that have been sort of eroded and rubbed away with time and just became soft and rounded. A lot of these walls are also going to get details and broken bits and stuff like that. But right now I'm just really focusing on getting things done. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.